Why do we love God? We love God because God has loved us. According to John's Gospel, God is love. In Genesis, God created male and female in His image and likeness. Then He gave them knowledge, wisdom, and freedom, and He blessed them. He blessed them with descendants, that means children, and He also blessed them with the possessions of the earth, to look after the earth. So, when we think about the creation story or the creation of human beings, what is creation? What is our life? Our life or the creation is nothing but God's love. Out of God's love, He created us. Out of God's love, He created this beautiful world. So this is what we need to love God. When God loved us without any selfish motives, there was no any selfishness at all in His love. There was no any condition. But the condition was, we must love God, serve God, we must glorify God, and we must look after the earth. So this is what we all experience, God's love today. In today's gospel we find the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees. The Sadducees had doubt about the resurrection of the dead. They did not believe. They also don't believe the existence of the angels. So Jesus had met them and He had confrontation with them. So now the Pharisees, they came together to plot against Jesus, to find out the mistakes of Jesus. So what is the statement we find here, the question we find here? So we see here, Master, which is the greatest commandment of the law? And Jesus said, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And Jesus also added another one, you must love your neighbor as yourself. The lawyer expected Jesus that Jesus will only talk about loving God. Jesus will not talk about loving the neighbors, because the Pharisees, the scribes, when they made the 10 commandments into 613 precepts, they multiplied and they categorized which are the important commandments and which are the not important commandments. But according to Jesus, the 10 commandments are based on love. And Jesus also points out very well, we cannot love God without loving neighbor. We cannot love neighbor without loving God. So loving God and loving neighbor, they go together. Because God created the human beings in His image and likeness. So therefore we must love the people. And very especially people, those who are poor, the oppressed, the outcast. So today, what we learn from today's gospel is, let us experience God's love in our life. If we don't experience God's love, we can't love our neighbors our families. So we can't separate loving God and loving neighbors. This is the new commandment we find here, how Jesus reduced the 10 commandments into 2 commandments of love, loving God and loving neighbor. And Jesus finally said, on these 2 commandments hang the whole law and the prophets also. So this is what we need to experience. The Jews, they were accepting or reading the scriptures, the Pentateuch, the 5 books. The whole law was written in Pentateuch. What about the prophets? Of course, some prophets are there in the Pentateuch, but there are also some more prophets outside of Pentateuch, the 5 books. So Jesus is talking about the prophets. So let us pray today in this Mass. We may experience God's love in this Eucharistic celebration. Jesus loved us and gave his life for us. And he established the sacrament of the Eucharist, where he is giving his life every day. And let us pray especially for our family, that we may experience God's love in the family and we may love our neighbors as Jesus taught in today's Gospel.